Welcome to another live stream from Den of Geek here on some exciting UFO news. My name's Alejandro Rojas. I am the resident UFO expert at Den of Geek. I've been writing about this topic for quite some time, and luckily it's been a real exciting time here while I've been writing for Den of Geek, and we've been able to bring you more information than you're going to find even on mainstream media regarding this topic. So UFOs are in the news. Why? Because the DoD says that they have released authorized videos captured by the Navy that the Navy claim are unidentified. Now, if you're thinking, wait, I think I've seen these videos before, it's because you have. They were actually released first in the New York Times in 2017, and they were verified back then as being real also. Soon after that New York Times article, the U.S. Navy said, we agree that there are unidentified encounters that we have at times, that we take this seriously, and that those videos are real. As time has gone on, the DoD has kind of backtracked. They've said, no, these videos aren't real, that we didn't have anything to do with them. They were all part of this release that revealed that the Pentagon had a UFO program that had been going on since 2007. Where they were investigating the situation. They denied that, but the DoD's had to change their story on all of these. And finally, the DoD has admitted recently those videos are real and they were released by, they were from the Navy. They're claiming they were only just authorized to be released. The 2017 New York Times article says differently. In fact, the gentleman who worked for that Pentagon program, who revealed to the world that it existed, is the one who got those videos released, and he has since. There have been forms to show and emails to show that he did get that authorization back in 2017 in the summer. So one of those situations that's very exciting that occurred, that was reviewed in the New York Times, was an incident that occurred in November 2004 in regards to the USS Nimitz carrier strike group. Now, there's multiple boats that are involved with a strike group, and there was actually a submarine as well, when these guys encountered UFOs. So we have pretty much the best expert, I think, to bring on, the radar supervisor, who was actually the guy who was watching and tracking these UFOs and finally was able to request to get jets scrambled, and they chased the thing. So we've got Kevin Day on. And hello, Kevin.
Hello, everyone.
And I wanted
to be here with you.
Read a little bit more about your background here. Good to see you too. But you're a retired Navy Senior Chief Operations Specialist, specializing in radar systems. Kevin's a Top Gun Air Intercept Controller. He has more than 20 years experience in strike group air defense, including wartime operations. So you've got quite a background working with these radar systems.
Indeed, I did. At the time the Tick-Town encounters went down, I had 18 years sea time on that type of ship. 18 years of looking at the Spy 1 radar.
So I want to talk about a few things, including your reactions to these latest disclosures, and also some exciting things that you're up to right now, looking into all of this. But I do kind of, in a nutshell, want to review what had occurred in 2004. So maybe if you can let people know, essentially you were catching these strange things on radar for a few days in November. Is that correct?
Yeah, we were off the coast of San Diego, about 90 miles southwest or so that day. And this was back in 2004. And you got to remember, Alejandro, the war was still going on pretty hot and heavy. We had received orders to deploy a little bit early. So we were out there training pretty hard. And I was up on watch. I was standing in my anti-air warfare coordinator watch position, and up towards Catalina Island, a couple hundred miles north of us or so, I noticed these odd tracks off the coast of Catalina. The reason why I say they were odd is because there was like 5 of them, if I remember right, from my logbook, and they were at 28,000 feet going 100 knots, which is just a little bit over 100 miles an hour, and they were tracking south. And I was thinking to myself, what in the hell can fly like that? A hot air balloon? And no one in our strike group seemed to know what what the ID was, and I still don't to this day. They weren't broadcasting any type of electronic signatures that we could help us ID with. They were not on the Comair routes. They weren't flying normal flight parameters. Normally things that high going that slow are probably going to fall out of the sky unless they're lighter than air. We weren't really worried about them so much because as far as we knew, it was something completely civilian, and that whoever those civilians were, they didn't even know we were down here operating. They didn't know we were down here training. So I wasn't really worried about them from a threat or defensive point of view. Here we were off the coast of San Diego. Until the day of the 14th rolled around. That's when I really got concerned because we were about to conduct a major air defense exercise, which was my forte. That's what I did. I was going to launch a bunch of the notional good guys off the carrier, a bunch of notional adversary aircraft out the beach, and we were going to go at it, man. We were going to have a really high fidelity type of air defense training. And because these objects were now in that same piece of airspace, I was gravely concerned at that point. And Captain Smith, the air defense commander for the Nimitz strike group, he was a commanding officer of the USS Princeton, my ship. He comes down to combat, and I said, "Hey, sir, we've been watching these contacts for several days now, and nobody in the strike group has any idea at all what they are. And we're getting ready to launch all these aircraft for the air defense exercise, and I really strongly recommend we intercept one, because if we don't, and there's some sort of midair mishap with these things, somebody's going to be asking you and I why we were so damn curious about these things." And he kind of looks at me for a minute and he goes, "You know what? You're right. Go intercept one." So I go back over to the console. I'm the air controller, Top Gun graduate, right? And I'm on a real long headed headset, so I can maneuver about the space and talk to all the operators. And my AIC's there, so we picked the first one, the closest one, and it's a standard intercept. The Wallbanger flight was up as an airborne E-2 Hawkeye radar plane. They already had control of the Fast Eagle flight, Commander Fravers flight. So my intention was just to let them do the intercept, because it was a lot faster and easier. They already had control and everything. But they didn't have a radar contact on these objects. They only had the symbols on the data links, right? So we transferred control back to the Princeton.
And I guess just to clarify, I mean, the Princeton, that's your job, one of your jobs. You guys are looking at the radar ship. There are also planes that are flying above where the campaign area that also have radar. Like you said, they were the ones who couldn't pick them up. And so then you had to zero in the jets. So reference Commander Fravor, who's a wing commander, right? I mean, essentially, as far as pilots go, he's the top dog, right? A second pilot did go out, and he decided that he wanted to get that object on video, and he did, thankfully. They're using from the F-18 jet FLIR, which is called, technically forward-looking infrared radar. So these might not have been forward-looking, but these little these little video pods that are looking in the IR so they can detect heat, and they caught one of these things on video, and that's what you can see in these videos that have been shared and discussed, and people are really excited about. So there were two different incidents. There's the wing commander, Fravor, who was interviewed by the New York Times, who chased the object, and then the second gentleman was Chad Underwood, the pilot who actually captured the video of the infrared, the little UFO that's been so exciting and has created so much news lately. But another thing that's exciting is that in the area where all of this occurred, there are a group of people getting together to go investigate that area. And let's see if I can get Kevin back on, because he's a big part of this expedition that's going on. So this area, it was near Catalina Island, and also another island that's further to the south that is, I believe, in Mexico water, which is the Guadalupe Island. But a group of these people that were involved, including Kevin Day, are getting together. It's called UAPX, the UAP Expedition, and you can go to uapexpedition.org to find out more. But they're going to be going to the area, and you can find out a lot more about it. And they're going to be doing some scientific investigation to see if they can get these things, because there are a lot of researchers who feel there's a lot of stuff, weird stuff going on in that area. If you saw the television show Unidentified from the History Channel, they actually did some of that on the show. They went down there to Guadalupe Island. They interviewed fishermen in the area. These fishermen said they had UAP experiences, or in other words, UFO experiences. It's also an area where there's a lot of sharks. I believe that's where the hammerheads all come to mate. And so there's a lot going on in that area that's really exciting. So they're going to go down there with some scientific equipment to see if they can find anything out. So something else that's going on that I know Kevin wanted to share, because they could use some help with funds to put all together, because they've got quite an ambitious goal there, and they want to gather a lot of scientific evidence. Now, they do have a whole host of people, including a few PhDs in areas such as physics and technology, who have joined their team. Also, there's a number of other witnesses, such as other radar experts that work with Kevin, that are going to be going out there as well. So it should be exciting. And of course, we'll keep an eye on this, and we'll bring you more information as it comes. There are some people asking some questions. Some of these are pretty technical as far as radar, and unfortunately, I can't answer some of those questions. I can see if we can get Kevin back. I'm going to try again. So did you want to talk more about your expedition?
Yeah, we one thing led to another after Commander Fravor went public. And when he went public, I knew my life was going to change in that moment, because I didn't have a choice. I had to speak up, because I was what they called the third wingman. I was his air controller for that flight. So I had to back up what he was saying. So when this story broke in December of 17, I went home and I jumped on the internet, and Robert Powell from the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies had dropped something on YouTube. I went into the chat room and I said, "Hey, Robert, you got to contact me." I was there, and he did. Long story short, I ended up on Facebook in a private closed group. And out of that group, we ended up forming friendships and associations. And long story short, we started a nonprofit. It's called UAP Expeditions. And like you were talking about, Alejandro, I have some really well-known physicists, research scientists, and Silicon Valley entrepreneurs and tech developers on the team. And the whole idea is to crew up the ships with people with impeccable credentials and pedigrees, and then get some really cutting edge high tech. And we're going to go out there. We're going to try to find them, and I'll explain why I think we will in a second. And if we do, we're going to record all the data we can in multiple modalities. And then the idea is to give all the data away to the experts over at SU, to let them crunch the data that we collect and tell the world what we found. Our job is to go find it. Mm-hmm. And we do need to raise money, but the neat thing is there isn't anyone on our team getting paid. We're all 100% volunteers, and all of our costs to do the expedition are all logistical. We got to charter 2 ships, and we got to get people and equipment to and from San Diego. They're all logistical costs. And our working number is 84,000. We need about 80. It's a lot of money, but it's not a showstopper It's not a showstopper amount. It's just a pure logistical cost type of money. So if you go to our website at UAP expedition.org, we got crowdfunding set up there. And Dr. Kevin Kenneth, runs the physics lab. He's a quantum physicist on our team. He runs a physics lab at CUNY out of Albany, New York, the university. And he's requesting, and he will be administering a grant to help fund the expedition. And the whole idea is awesome. We're going out there in December. We're going out there in December this year. And the reason why we chose December is because this 2004 event happened in November. The ships weren't available in November, as it turned out, so we chose the next month, and we kind of want to do it during the same period of time, because one of our research hypotheses is these objects, whatever they are there every year, probably the same time of year as part of a yearly pattern. There's probably a pattern that exists, and we just got to go there at the right time with the right observers, the right trained observers, and the right equipment. And I believe we'll be able to capture these things. I really do. Because after all, Chad Underwood did it. When Commander Fravor landed back on the Nimitz because he was low on fuel, Chad Underwood's flight was about ready to take off, and he said, "Hey, Underwood, make sure you take a working advanced forward infrared looking radars, so you can get video. Go find these things and get video." And I wasn't there. I was on the Princeton, but reportedly Chad yelled out real loud, "I'm going to go find those things." And he did. So it's my belief that conscious intent, if we consciously intend to go find those things and we have the right people, the right gear, go to the right time of year, we just might get lucky.
Well, good luck. I hope you find something. One of the things I think that really helps the credibility of what you all experienced and have been sharing with the world is that the Navy's been very forthcoming. They've been very positive. I mean, they've backed you guys up. They've said, yeah, these things are unidentified. Our guys are telling the truth. That, for someone who's been writing about this stuff for a while, is kind of surprising and a big change, because usually they deny things. Were you surprised? What was your reaction to the Navy being so positive and supportive of you all?
We all, I think I can speak for everyone here, we all felt a huge sense of vindication, because when we all first came out, we caught a lot of grief. It wasn't unbearable by any means, but we were pretty well scrutinized for a long, long time, and I've always done my best to keep the credibility of the story up high and stay away from speculation, which I think tends to ruin credibility. For example, if I come out and tell you right now that I have no doubt these things are aliens, I can't defend that. I don't have that evidence. So that's why I haven't said that.
Now,
I'm not going to unless I have the evidence to say it.
Makes sense. So that's why you're seeking the evidence. With the Navy,
these videos had already been released, and the fact, it's a great question to ask. Why just last week did they release them again, officially again?
That was going to be my question.
Why would they need to do that? And I'm going to speculate, okay? And I think the reason is because the next shoe is about to drop. I think there's a pretty good reason the missing radar data, the missing combat engagement capability data, and the missing external communications data off the ships, I think it's about to be revealed publicly. I'm just guessing. I could be dead wrong about that. I don't know, but if I had to guess, that would be my guess.
So you're hoping that some of the information that is missing from that incident will be shared soon.
Yes.
I hope so too. So I have a couple questions from the chat, if you don't mind.
Please, go for it.
So this one is kind of a complicated one. And I think he's asking because there have been some people who have analyzed these videos, but they're not people who are familiar with military, capabilities and systems like you all are. But he wants to know about the D-link from Princeton and the E3 populating their essay page, how if F-18s can't lock, they can tracking data passively. I'm not sure what that means. Could you, do you, and if so, can you explain it to us?
I'm not sure I understood the question.
Yeah.
He's asking about data links?
Yeah, data links, and about how even if the F-18 lock, he could still track the object, I think is what he's commenting about.
Yeah, the FN-18 Super Hornet has its own onboard organic radar system. Sure, it does. In other words, it has its own independent radar aside from the ship, and it'll use the radar to get radar contacts on its own. Now the data links, right? The Super Hornets were, at the time, they were up in a couple different data links. They're up in CEC, cooperative engagement capability. And what that system does, it'll take inputs from all of the different radars in the entire strike group, and it'll make a composite picture of one radar picture, really high fidelity radar picture. And they were also up in link 16, which is was one of the earlier link systems where if I had contacts, I could put them on a data link over to your unit, and now you had the same contacts.
All right, so I guess it's really complicated.
I hope I came close to answering the question.
I think so. Just that, it's complicated. Like we talked about, there's your radar system, there's the radar planes flying in the area, and then the jets have their own radar systems. So I guess the pilot has to switch between where he's getting information from.
Yeah, they're pretty smart guys, and we do a lot of training, practicing exactly that.
Mm-hmm.
The whole reason why we were out there is to practice exactly that.
Mm-hmm. So your life has probably changed quite a bit. I mean, I'm guessing that you wouldn't be going on a UAP expedition had not all of this news come out.
As a matter of fact, when this whole thing went down, if I could kind of give you a little background on it, I was really frustrated because in my mind, here we had just intercepted UFOs. And at the very least, they were, if nothing else, if they weren't a direct threat to the ships, they were certainly a threat to safe air navigation. And the fact that my upper chain of command, the captain and above him, didn't seem to give a shit. They seemed really incurious about it. It really, really, really bugged me. And so the next morning after this happened, I was going to do something about it. I was going to go up to Combat Information Center, and I was going to write an after-action message describing everything that had happened. I didn't know if Captain Smith would release it because he had been active so incurious, but I was going to give it a go anyway. I was a primary operational message writer for the ship. So I go up to combat, and the first thing I wanted to get was the external comms that had been recorded, so I could kind of recreate the events from that day, so I could write a good message. And lo and behold, all of my external communications over the radio were all missing. And that should not have happened. In fact, what does happen is when we have a system on the ships, when you key an external radio, it throws your recorded comms onto an optical disc and redundant tracks. And every time I key the mic, the date time group of that transmission gets punched onto the disc, and then the comms follow. Funny thing is, when the technician and I went to review the disc, all of those date time stamps were there, but all the comms were all missing.
And I mean, had you ever seen that before?
Never. In fact, it's not supposed to be possible. The whole reason why the optical disc is like that is so we can investigate an incident and find out what happened, good or bad. And if that data is gone, then it makes it really hard to do that. Now I got to tell you and your audience, when this went down, it was not my situational awareness that anyone had come on board our ship and taken our data. At the time, I didn't think someone had come on board. I did not think anyone had come on board and taken our communication data, taken away our radar data, and taken away our CEC data. I only found out that happened in the last year or so. But my experience with the missing comms data does corroborate what my other shipmates are saying.
Do you have any idea where that data, who might have taken it or where it's gone?
My best guess is in CSED's Morristown, New Jersey. The combat system Engineering Development Center. They are the ones that do the engineering and development for the Ticonderoga class ships and the Arleigh Burke class ships on the DDGs, and the Aegis technologies. And the reason why I think that is because when the USS Vincennes in 1988 shot down the Iranian Airbus by accident, that's where all that radar and communication data ended up, so they could figure out ways to never let that happen again. So if I had to guess, that's where I think the data is. I could be wrong.
The video that Chad Underwood got that is now out there in the public, and now even the DoD has a link where you could download it. Is that, some people have argued that it's kind of a misinterpretation, that it could be a bird or a balloon or a conventional aircraft. What are your thoughts on that?
I'll tell you what, man, these from about the 10th to the 16th of November, if I counted up all the different contacts, and then we were seeing them in groups between 5 and 10 at a time over the course of a number of days, there was like 100 of these objects altogether if we counted them all up from point A to point Z. And I have to be honest with you, I don't know if they were all the same type of contact. I don't know. In other words, I don't know if they were all Tic Tacs. And the reason why I don't know that is because 2015 over on the Roosevelt, one of the objects that they saw was actually a square box with a sphere inside of it. And the only visual ID we had was the one, the Tic Tacs. So, in fact, I don't even know if they're all different. I don't even know if they were all different contacts. It could have been the same 5 or 10, just recycling over and over and over again, giving it appearance there was more than one track. And these things behave like some super capable flock of birds. I mean, when Commander Fravor did his intercept and he got to the merge spot, the merge plot position, which is basically two objects in the same vertical piece of sky. And when I look at it on a 2-dimensional display, it looks like one object now. Well, this object was about 28,000 feet. He intercepted it. And all of a sudden on the radio, we hear, oh my God, I'm engaged. And right then, that object fell from 28,000 feet down to the surface of the water in less than a second. 0.78 seconds, I found out later the next day. What the hell can do that? And another amazing thing it did during Commander Fravor's intercept is after he got in a minor dogfight with this thing, that object went about 60 miles. It flew from where they were back up to his combat air patrol station, 60 miles away in less than 2 seconds.
Yeah, that's extraordinary. Now, you mentioned the Roosevelt in 2015. So the other 2 videos out of this group of 3 come from the experiences, the encounters that they had. When did you find out about those Roosevelt encounters? And were you surprised to see that, they had similar experiences to you in a different carrier strike group?
It was approximately a year and a half ago when I first learned of them. And I have to say that I was surprised, but I guess not totally so, because I have a working theory about what allowed us to finally see these things. And again, I'm going to speculate. This is speculation because I don't actually know the answer. But right before the Nimitz strike group had gotten underway in 2004, our ship and some of the aircraft had received a top secret technical upgrade. I didn't know anything about it because I just have a secret clearance. But I think for whatever reason, that upgrade that we received suddenly allowed us to see something that had been in the skies for maybe a long time. We just couldn't see it before. And I think that goes a long way with explaining why since 2004, a lot more Navy units are seeing them too, because now that technology that we got is fleet wide. So it just kind of makes sense to me. It was our ability to find them was a direct result of the technology we had.
So actually, a UFO researcher, if this is really Don Schmidt, someone in the chat asks, Were these unknowns in restricted airspace, and at any time did they pose a threat?
I have to say yes and no. They when the Navy's operating the Southern California operating areas, we go out with a public message. It's called notice to air navigation. And if you're a pilot, you get the notice, and you're advised to stay out of that warning area because there's a military operation going on. So yeah, they were in restricted airspace, but I have to say they never once were threatening at all. In fact, just the opposite. In fact, Alejandro, I got to tell you, I was thinking the whole time to myself, and I never verbalized this at the time, but I was thinking to myself, damn, are these things alive? Just based on their behavior, they're acting like some super capable flock of birds. I throw a pebble and some pigeons on the ground. They all take off and scatter, but then they regroup and go on their way. That's exactly what these objects did. After the intercepts happened, at one time it was raining UFOs out of the sky. But after the intercept was over, every one of these objects went back up to 28,000 feet, resumed going south at 100 knots, and regrouped and kept on going south as if nothing fun had just happened. They acted as if they wanted nothing at all to do with this. They were the opposite of threat.
Wow. So if I'm right, then because they seemed not to be a threat, it seemed as your leadership, your commander, your captain decided, let's just ignore it and leave it alone.
That's a valid point of view. You know, if that was his reasoning, that's a valid point of view. Again, my concern was safety of flight. I mean, if this happens again in the future, we should probably have some procedures in place to make sure we don't have a mid-air collision, for example. And let me ask you something, Alejandro. What if that exact same damn thing happened when our strike group was off the coast of some belligerent country, and we really did have missiles on the rails, and one of our pilots really did encounter a UAP, and they really were afraid for their life and for the safety of the ships, and they decided to defend, and they shot a missile, thinking they were under attack, because this thing had jammed them or something. It jammed them. It violated the rules of engagement, so they were authorized to shoot. They did. And for whatever reason, they chose to use a Sidewinder missile, which is not supported by radar. It's infrared only. And that I'll call it a UFO. That UFO goes zorching back off into outer space, and now that missile that she just shot is looking for a new target because it's still active, it's still alive. And what if it acquires an Airbus or a commercial airliner? Or what if it acquires one of their military aircraft or one of our military aircraft? That could start a freaking war, man, that nobody wants.
That's a really great point. And there are countries like Chile that,
in my view, that if there is a threat, that's it. That is how they represent a threat. Safety of flight and overreaction by us.
Yeah, it's a great point. I was going to say there are countries like Chile that actually take this all very seriously, and they have high-level meetings about this very thing. And they've actually officially come to the conclusion that the objects themselves don't pose a threat, but similar to what you're saying is that their existence and being around could cause mistakes on our side, similar to what you've been outlining. So that makes them a concern, which is great that the Navy's taking it seriously, really.
Yep, great news. They're training for it. They're training for it and developing procedures to prevent that kind of thing from happening.
There's another question in the chat that the videos that were released were very short. Do you know if there are longer videos that are being held back?
I have to say no, but with an explanation. And this will make a lot of sense to you. I was an air defense guy. I'm a top gun graduate as an air intercept controller. And part of our procedures, the way it works is like if this is our strike group and the notional threat is up here to the north, I'm going to have points in the sky they call combat air patrol stations all around in that threat sector. So if they come at me, I'm already in a position where I can do something about it. And I kind of lost my train of thought. What was the question?
So the other videos, if there are longer videos that exist.
Yeah. And so what happens was I've got my cap station manned up, and all of a sudden, yeah, I do get a bogey group coming at us, and we don't know what it is. So we're going to make a decision to go intercept it, look at it. And when that flight crew gets that order, the very first thing they reply is they come out on the radio and they say, "Flight's on, tape's on." Think about what that means. From the moment they get the order, they turn on all the recording gear that they have. You don't wait until you're in the middle of a dogfight to turn on your recording, or wait till something fun happens to turn on your recording. Because if you did that, you're going to miss it. So the answer is yes. There had to have been, unless Chad Underwood messed up that day and he forgot to do it. There had to have been a longer video. Had to have been, because that's our standard procedures. Whether there still is today, that's an open question, right? Where is it? And the reason why that snippet is so short, and the reason why I know the Tic Tac Fleer one video is legitimate is because I had that exact same video in my email that very next morning. And the reason why it was so grainy is because somebody on the carrier had converted a little snippet of a longer video into an MPEG video. And back in 2004, MPEG was still pretty grainy. So that's why it's not clear. You're looking at a recopied from a source of an old MPEG video. And that's why it's so grainy. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, great answer. And when you refer to your email, though, you're not talking about like your Gmail. This is probably a secure email system that you're using on the ship.
Yeah, the SIPRNet, the classified secret email system for the military.
Do you have any idea if the FAA tracked these objects when you did?
I don't. We're trying to find that out, actually. That's actually a really great question.
Yeah, that was one of the questions from Don Schmidt. Thanks for asking. And another, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, thank you, Don. That's a good question.
Another question there was, and you kind of answered it before, is, I mean, prior to this incident, did you have any sort of idea behind protocols for engaging unknowns? I would guess perhaps typical unknown would be maybe like a drug runner or something like that, but not something with high capability.
Oh, definitely. In fact, we call them bogeys. In fact, most intercepts start out as an unknown. That's why if I already know what it is, I might not even need to intercept it. But one of the reasons why I choose to intercept something is to do a visual ID to actually ascertain what the hell it is. So yeah, we definitely procedures for it. What we did not have procedures for is something that can go 1,350 Gs and still survive. Something that can go 35,000 miles an hour and still survive. No sonic booms. Something that behaved in non-Newtonian ways. That stuff was never on our radar. That was never part of our training. And from what I've heard, it is now, which is good news.
Now, if I remember correctly, that period of time, those exercises were right before you were about to retire. Is that right?
Yeah. Matter of fact, that turned out to be my very last underway in uniform, and it turned out to be my very last intercept in uniform. The ship got back to San Diego. I transferred to what turned out to be my last command about a week later. And and during this whole time, I was trying to raise a stink about this to get someone's attention, and nobody seemed to give a shit, right? And I did my last tour, my last command at Commander Naval Air Forces Pacific in Coronado, right across the Bay Bridge in San Diego. And I retired. Well, the problem was, Alejandro, I retired, but my concerns didn't. And my concerns started to manifest into really bad nightmares because I was concerned about safety flight, and I was concerned about starting a war off the coast of Iran or somewhere, and it really, really bugged me. So what I did is I wrote a short story I call it The Seer, and it's a fictionalized account of the Nimitz encounters. And if you ever read The Seer, there's no mistaking that it's the same story. And I wrote a couple other short stories to go with it, and I published it in the Library of Congress. I published the book in the Library of Congress, just in case the story ever did become public, that my story would be a form of contemporaneous evidence that it really happened. And it really did happen. All that happened. The story became public, and now my book is evidence. And I moved on in life. Until Commander Fravor went public on December 17, 2017, I had moved on and I had pretty much forgotten all about it. And I never related the personal problems that I had had during the interim period of time at all with what had happened in 2004. I thought I was just paying the price for my own failures, to be honest with you. And that's a whole nother story that I've told before. And it's part of the story for me. But when Commander Fravor went public, it changed. My life suddenly changed again. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. One question was, after all of this did come out, did you have you had other former radar operators come and share with you that they had similar encounters?
Yes. In fact, more and more it's happening. And one of the problems with people coming forward is people like me that retire in technical positions and with operational expertise and stuff. They tend to get hired on in the civilian world as contractors and stuff, and they tend to be pretty good jobs. They're making pretty decent money. And so, who wants to risk that job by speaking out? You got a family, you got maybe taking care of your mom or your dad. You got responsibilities. So I think that prevents a lot of people who would otherwise come out. I think it prevents them from doing it because they're concerned about their families and their livelihoods.
Right. I think people don't consider a lot of these real world kind of situations.
I mean, more and more that's starting to change. In fact, this whole time our team has been working on some other witnesses that are in that situation. And they're not public, but we have been talking to them. And at some point, I hope that at least a few of them will decide to go public.
Someone asked that it was reported that these objects were actively jamming the F-18 radar. Is that true? Have you heard that? And if so, does that indicate to you that it could have been some sort of military craft?
That is such an excellent question, because if someone shoots directed energy at me, they call it jamming. In our rules of engagement, if that happens overseas, for example, that actually is an act of war. If I get jammed, and we can definitely confirm I'm getting jammed, I have the legal right to shoot. No more questions asked.
Wow.
And if Commander Fravor, who, oh, by the way, is one of the best damn pilots the Navy's ever trained and produced, if Commander Fravor says he got jammed, then you can take that to the bank. He definitely got jammed. The question is, was it purposeful? Did that object mean the jamming? Or my contention is, based on the way they were behaving otherwise, I think the jamming was just an aspect of the technology that we don't understand fully yet.
That makes sense.
It appeared to him he was getting jammed, but it wasn't a hostile intent. It wasn't a hostile act.
Had you ever had anything like this happen before?
Never.
And did your radar indicate the size of the objects at all?
No. When I'm looking at my radar display, I'm not even, normally I don't choose to look at the raw radar. In fact, I'm looking at a whole scope full of symbologies. And back in the 1950s, when they designed the systems, they had oscilloscopes that create sine waves. So they base the symbols off a sine wave. The top part of the sine wave is an air contact. The bottom part is a surface contact, and the round thing would be, the bottom one would be a subsurface, and the round one would be a surface contact. So I'm looking at different shapes and symbols. And by looking at that type of picture, I know what the objects are. I very seldom choose to look at the actual radar.
And someone's asking, and this is the same asking before, and I understand why they're asking for this clarification, because it's such a shocking story and idea that this sort of thing is occurring. But he wants to confirm, so to you, it's 100% impossible that there was a civilian aircraft jamming radar, and that it couldn't have been friendly military aircraft.
I don't have that type of certitude. I just have my instincts and my experience to go on. And the reason why I personally don't think it was us running a test against us is because I used to design air defense exercises for a living. And if I could describe that process in a single word, it would be safety. Everything we do is built around the concept of safety. I mean, these exercises we design them, we execute them, and we debrief them, and we get lessons learned and stuff. Now, if I did design an exercise and some other agency or outfit puts another test on top of my exercise and I don't know about it and it places my aircraft in danger, that's illegal, man. Can't do that. I mean, it's actually illegal. You could go to jail for doing that because people could get hurt and very expensive technology could get broken. So I wouldn't want to be the person who decided to do that. But it is, I can't say that it's impossible, because let's say that was the case and that's what did happen. Perhaps there was somebody looking out for safety. I just didn't know about it. And it was, it was covered already. I just didn't know about it. But I don't personally believe that to be the case. I do not believe they were us running a test against us. I just don't. Because
I think you made a very strong argument.
It's not the way we do things. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not the way we did stuff.
And I guess we'll make this the last question. Someone's asking, do you suspect that the captain of the Princeton was already clued in on the existence of the tic-tac type objects? And I'm assuming this person asked the question because you had said the captain seemed to react.
I have a strong suspicion that's the case, because at one point, it was a day or two later, I got the captain aside. I said, hey, sir, just between you and me, what do you think these things were? And you know what he said? He said, Sir Chief, maybe spontaneously forming ice crystals. And I was so shocked, I started laughing at him. And I thought, oh, shit, I didn't mean to laugh at you, sir. He let me get away with it because it was preposterous, right? Mm-hmm. I thought that was preposterous answer, yeah.
And I mean, you would have
forming ice doesn't pull 1,350 Gs and remain ice,
Right. And I would imagine that you had a lot more experience with those systems than he did.
Probably pretty equivalent, actually. I mean, at that point, he had 28 years sea time, and I had 18. But all of his service wasn't aboard ships like that. I had a pretty varied command. So we probably had similar time behind the Spy 1 radar. But because of to answer the question, because his answer was so preposterous, I think he was pulling a cover story on me. I don't know, just I guess. But I do think he was clued in, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, really, where is he now? And where is he now?
Yeah.
Right? How come he doesn't come out and talk about this? Maybe he can't.
Because do you know if he's been approached?
He has been, yeah. Apparently, from what I heard, is he claims to not remember it. He claims to not remember it, which is even more corroboration of that theory, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's your safest answer, right? If you can't talk about it, just say, I don't remember that.
Right.
It's easier that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You could have done that too and probably shirked all of this, but it's wonderful that you're coming out and being so candid about your experiences.
I had to. For me, I didn't have a choice. I was Commander Fravier's third wingman, and the bravery that that guy showed when he came forward. There was no way I couldn't come forward.
Well, very honorable of you, and we thank you for doing that, and we for coming here and sharing with us today. And so we'll let people know again, UAPexpedition.org, where they can find out about your expedition coming up here. When is that? When are you planning on hopefully making that happen?
Well, you know that we're trying to verify that now with the Horizon Charters, the ship company we're working with, because this pandemic has messed up their schedule too. But our notional dates right now are the 8th through the 18th of December of 2020. 10 days on station.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and you stay safe.
Thank you, brother. Really good to see you again, by the way.
Details of the situation that Kevin had been through at the International UFO Congress. I was able to interview him on stage for a very lengthy period of time where we really got into the minutia. So you can find that there. But a lot of more interesting news coming on all of this, and we will have more people to talk to. In fact, currently we are planning on interviewing a gentleman who worked for the Ministry of Defense in the UK, investigating UFOs, and get his take on all of this from his perspective, having that experience working for the government investigating UFOs. So that ought to be really interesting. So stay tuned to the Den of Geek social media for more information on when that will be scheduled and how you'll be able to find out about that. And hopefully you can join us live and ask some questions. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time. This is Alejandro Rojas signing off.